I have the great pleasure now of introducing Jake O'Connell, who is the CEO and co-founder of a company called Scrapbox. You may have noticed his logo is a little bit similar. I didn't want to say anything. Jake was a tutor in the Sandbox from 2015 through 2019. And let's see, he gave like the first presentation on fintech even before he knew what it was. And Jake and I would like play around with new technologies such as this. Today we're playing with the Pivo interactive whiteboard for $149. The equipment is a pen and a sensor. Sped up a little bit. Calibration is complete. Let's run a presentation. And let's try this presentation. Now it gets better. Today we're playing with the Pivo interactive whiteboard for $149. The equipment is a pen. No, it's not. It's not. And a sensor.
Come on, Mark. Master of the technology.
I'm Mark, Master of Technology. Let's find Jake's presentation. So I am thrilled to bring up Jake O'Connell to talk about coding in the age of AI. And I have a present for you.
Thank you, Mark. Let me see if I can get this. Do I just go to the next slide and just get to go?
Is that a song?
Still playing with technology together.
Only the IT goes.
There you go. You can probably use that if you plug it in.
Yeah, that would take us a while. All right, here we go. There we go. I normally talk a lot with my hands, so it's like this, so you can hear me. Thank you, Mark. Mark has asked me a few times to do a topics in tech or something similar like that. I've done it a few times, but a lot of the time I say, I don't have anything to say. Like everybody's so smart nowadays. I feel like an imposter amongst you all. And I was at the CIS Summit, the Sandbox Summit, a few weeks ago, and saw some of the student presentations, and was blown away by what everyone is doing now. So I hope that this presentation I'll get through pretty quickly, and I hope that maybe somebody out there learned something, but also I know that probably most of the learning is things that I need to learn from you. So, coding in the age of AI. And I put this little disclaimer here because, it's just after 8 now, but with the rate that things are changing, who knows if by 9 p.m. this presentation will be out of date. So before we get into 2026, where we are now, I think it's important to take a step back and look at where we've come. Because we take for granted now the tools that we have access to and the things that we can do. But I remember I graduated in 2019, and there was no ChatGPT, there were no LLM APIs that you could call in and tie into. So some of the things that we do very easily now took a lot of effort, sometimes a year of work and a lot of coffee. And I'll talk about an example there. But so 2022, there was no ChatGPT until the end of 2022. The LLM APIs existed, but they weren't mainstream. I found some examples I used in 2021 where I was asking if the AI was aware, and it was a lot of self-awareness checks and things like that we probably all did a little bit as we got used to it. And then 2023, now we have GPT-4 came out in the API. We could actually do useful things with AI. And I'll talk about an example in a second. So that was a big jump, but still very different from where we're at today. And then 2024, for anybody out there who is an engineer or a coder or has done some code before, that's when AI moved into our workflow. So we had Cursor that went mainstream, and we were actually using AI to generate code. And that was a big breakthrough, but again, very different from where we are today. So when we think about coding in the age of AI, I think that there's two big buckets to that. One is the tools that we use to generate code. And now we're at the point where The tools themselves are writing the code. And then there's also the AI APIs. So we have the developer productivity tools, but then we also have these AIs that we can tie into. So if you're building a product that needs something, well, really anything, and again, I'll show you an example, you can make an API call and have access to this incredible intelligence that we really did not have before. So this is going to go back a little while, but soon after I graduated Bentley, I spent the better part of 6 to 8 months trying to build a system that could ingest a PDF of a business contract and then extract specific information. So some basic things like what's the landlord's address or what's the lease end date. Some harder things to get, like the contract sum amount, and then ultimately insurance requirements. So you have this 150-page long contract, and you have to extract the insurance requirements. So my team and I spent a long time, 8 months, using a ton of very complicated technology and thousands of lines of code that we iterated on over and over and over again to finally, we launched a company that did this, and this was our core feature, was reading business contracts using all of these tools. And then, that was in 2022, come 2023, and we replaced those, basically everything, with a single call to OpenAI's API. So this is a little oversimplified, but at the end of the day, you can, this was the end of 2024, 2023, you could pass a PDF of a business contract into an AI and say, give me these things, and with a little bit of fine tuning, it's done. And that's exciting as an engineer, but also it's a little scary. This is a pretty simple example of what we can do now, but this was my first kind of, as an engineer and a coder and entrepreneur, saying, whoa, well, what is this going to be able to do in 6 months? Like the stuff that I'm spending 6 months of my time on now, is that all going to be replaced with a single API call eventually? So again, it's exciting, but it's also a little scary. So now we get to 2025. So what we were just talking about, and I hope this isn't too technical for everyone. I was going to do a poll at the beginning and say, how many people write code, and how many people use Cloud Code or Codex or Forge Coder, etc. But ultimately, 2025 is the year that really things. For anybody out there who writes code on a daily basis, is a hobbyist that writes code, we went from maybe in 2024 we were writing 75% of the code. And I think Google said that too, that 25% of the code is AI generated, but most of the time engineers are still writing code. Then we had these AI native development environments that kind of took off. So you may see it in the news. Those of you who are doing this on a daily basis have certainly probably heard of these things like Cloud Code. OpenAI has their own version of this. There's a series of other ones. There's open source ones. People write their own sometimes. And what this meant is that instead of just using like a fancy autocomplete, we were now working with agents that were writing a lot of the code for us. And I don't think Salek's here, right? Not Salek. So it's funny. In 2025, we got, I think it was in February or March is when these tools first started to go mainstream. And we had the introduction of these tools, but we also had the introduction of code slop. Just like you see with anything else that AI generates, a lot of the code was not very good. And it took a lot of revising and going back and a lot of maybe cursing at Cloud Code and saying, no, that's not how you do it. And so it kind of felt like a novelty. Like maybe when self-driving cars first started, where a few people bravely tried them, but they kept making very silly mistakes. And then there was like this incremental improvement. And so the reason I brought up Salek is because we were at a Sandbox dinner this summer together, and this is probably like August, and I was talking about how I'm using Cloud Code. You remember? And I was saying, I don't write any code anymore. I built this entire business and this whole app, and I don't even look at the code. And Salek was saying to me, yeah, that's going to be a problem. Like, you're going to want to look at some of that. I was saying, no. And ultimately, he was right. So I wish he was here. Because if you kind of peeled back the layers a little bit and took a look at what was being built, you realize that it wasn't very good. The AI was generating a lot of code, but it was going all over the place. And you could get varying levels of success with your prompting and how you set it all up, but ultimately it wasn't very good. And then, out of nowhere, in November and December of 2025, everything changed. This is anecdotal. I mean, other people have said this too. I'm not a big brain when it comes to these things. This is me using these tools on a daily basis. There was just this huge shift where all of a sudden, things went from, okay, this isn't very good, to, okay, this could write the majority of the code for me. I still need to read it and understand it, but I'm not really writing code anymore, which is the moment I've been waiting for since I took my first programming class in high school and failed. Because if my dentist asks me like what do I do for work, I say I'm a software engineer because it's easy and I get it across. But I've dreaded writing code. It's just not something I'm very good at. I'm an idea guy, like a builder, you guys could all write code or in circles around me. So for me, this was a huge monumental shift because I truly, and again, anecdotal, I don't write code anymore. So I don't, and I was saying this to someone earlier, it might have been Professor Vanderklok or someone, but even if it's like padding on a button or something, like I need to move a button like 2 centimeters, I don't do that. It would probably be faster for me to do it. I just don't, like my habit form now is that I just talk to Claude, now Codex, because Anthropic kicked me out for OpenClaw, anybody who knows that. So anyway, let's jump, and I'll wrap this up. We'll start moving faster. I told Mark that if I talk too much, he'd kick me out. So 2025, the end of 2025, a lot of software engineers are not writing code anymore. Spotify says its best developers haven't written a lot of code since December. So this is a big jump. To me, the biggest thing that I was still waiting for was I have to still sit in front of the computer. It's still interactive. So I'm still, I would put some code in and then go do a set of curls or something and then come back and then the prompt would be done and I'd prompt it again. But I wanted something that was autonomous that could run 24/7. And so in 2026, we're now moving to the point where instead of AI being a tool that we use, it's more like a coworker or a teammate. And OpenClaw, which, like how many people know what OpenClaw is? Is there a decent? Okay, good. All right, so people know what it is. So I jumped into OpenClaw very early, very carefully, very slowly. But ultimately at this point, it's been 3 months or 4 months. And I think, I have an OpenClaw example I'll get to, but this is just, before that I just want to say, so where are we going? Like what's January 2027 going to look like? Again, if January 2025, we were writing 75% of the code. January 2026, we're writing approaching 0. What does January 2027 look like? And I have no idea. So on a daily basis, I say this to people, I kind of jump up and down between extreme excitement about the things we can do and also extreme anxiety for a variety of reasons. But it's very unclear where we're going, and every day it seems like there's some new breakthrough, there's some new model. What is that? What are the implications for society at large, for me, for my peers? But again, I think if I had to pick, I wouldn't pick a different timeline, as I'm sure most people maybe would commit to where we're at. So anyway, with that said, these tools don't make engineers obsolete. I think that it redefines what it means to be an engineer, to be a coder. Again, it's something that, for anybody who can relate, I've been waiting for this day forever, because we can now, if you have ideas and you're a builder and somebody who's passionate about putting things together, none of that changes, and you can actually iterate a lot faster. So again, in my opinion, the best engineers are going to be those who optimize for leverage and take advantage of these tools. So this is that was the preamble, and then I'm going to quickly give you, again, my anecdotal perspectives. So I am all of these things. For the past 4 years, I've been running a software development agency, working with a variety of clients, from defense contractors to sports recruiting companies to, I was going to tell you an idea, but I can't tell you, it's a secret. But there's a really interesting idea that may be coming to the world soon. And then a curious human. So this is the biggest one, I think, as I'm sure many people in this room can relate to. And then also the IT guy in my circle. So I get a lot of phone calls about, can you set up an OpenClaw for me? Which I do, with some caveats. So the first one. So again, I run a software development agency, and anybody who has agency experience, it doesn't have to be software, it could be marketing, it could be even consulting. I work with a variety of clients and a variety of projects. And what we have done internally with OpenClaw, and I guess I should also describe what OpenClaw is for people who don't know. Basically, what OpenClaw is, and let me think about the way to explain this. It's a tool that you install on your computer or on a server, and it connects to an AI, and that could be OpenAI like ChatGPT or Anthropic like Claude. And what it does is it kind of has limitless potential to what you can do and build and have access to. So because it lives in your computer, it can open your web browser, it can read your email for you, it can call the bakery downtown and order the bagels that you like to get every day and can't get. It can physically do anything that you can do on your computer, and you can teach it and learn over time. So what we've done with OpenClaw at our agency, Scrapbox, is we have essentially onboarded these tools, these agents, as a person. So I'm really big into this word that I'm not going to try and pronounce, but anthropomorphizing, basically humanizing, giving human traits to something that maybe isn't human. So I love to create these OpenClaws and give them names and Google Workspace accounts and Slack accounts, just as you would onboard an employee or a person. And then they handle a lot of internally the things that we do. So I have like a bunch of grainy screenshots here, but there's a specific client that we onboarded, a new person from our agency called Pete Ocean, and Pete is an OpenClaw. And what Pete does is basically everything. So if a client has a question and he can answer it, he answers it. He's connected to our project management system. He's connected to AWS. He's connected to basically every tool that you would have an employee get onboarded onto, he's in. So he can answer questions. He can take actions that, again, if you hired, if you hired an employee, you wouldn't give them administrative access to everything in your company. You would give them the access they need to do the job they need to do. So we treat these just as we would as humans from a security standpoint. If they need elevated access to do something, they get it to do the thing they need to do, but we don't give them access to things that they shouldn't. But what we've been able to do is Pete here has replaced project management services for one of our clients. He writes and ships code, so he can get tickets assigned to him that we have in our project management system. He can write the code and ship the code. He can open PRs. He interacts with the team. He's in Slack. Something I think that's really cool, and this is the last thing I'll say about this OpenClaw stuff, is he can do what I call utility apps very quickly. So if we were in a few weeks ago on site at a client doing user training on a new system. And the system that we're building for this client has a third-party vendor integration. So they have to export a file out of our software, import it into the vendor, get a file out, and drag and drop it back in. The problem is that when we're doing testing, we don't want them sending real files to the vendor. So live in the conference room, I, on my phone, message Pete and say, hey, can you look at how this all works and then build a fake vendor site that takes the input files, generates export files, and gives them back out? And in 5 minutes, that site was up live on the internet, secured. I blanked it out here, but it was there and it worked, and it solved that problem. That was something we never would have thought to do, because why spend the 10 hours or something to spin up a utility app when we need it right there, right then? So again, that's how we're using OpenClaw to dramatically improve productivity. We have not let anyone go. This isn't replacing people, it's just making everybody's lives easier. Everybody can focus on different things than the stuff that Pete is now doing. And then, so that's the agency. From a startup perspective, and this one's really interesting, I'm working on a startup called Player AQ. It is a gamified learning platform for high school and college football players. I don't know anything about football, but my brother, who's my co-founder, played at Bentley actually, so he's a Bentley grad class of 2020. And he came up with this idea it's like Duolingo for language learning, but for high school football players to learn their playbooks and scouting reports. It feels like the NFL when you talk to some of these college coaches, they take it so seriously, and there's so much content. And these high school kids don't want to watch 4 hours of film or flip through a playbook or a scouting report. So they play games and lessons on their phones, very similar to Duolingo. We started sales today, so it launched today. So it's a big day for that. But the reason I bring it up is because the entire mobile app was built by, also a Bentley grad actually, my friend Sean Lehman, class of 2019, who was a finance guy, very bright young man, which is why he went to Bentley. And he built the mobile app after never having written code before, using Claude Code. He built the entire mobile app end to end. And it works really well. I've taken a look at it. We've actually had some other people take a look at it too, because I'm not a mobile dev. And it's very solid. It works really well. So this shows you that there's like the idea of finding a technical co-founder if you have an idea. That isn't necessarily something that's as important as it used to be. You still have to look at the code and understand the code, but you can build real products without having a background in engineering or coding. So anyway, that is my experience being at a startup that is using this stuff. And I'm going to skip this one just for time, but we can if anybody wants to talk about it after, it's more to get into. I just want to be mindful of the time. Last thing I'll say is, as a curious human, so I'm very interested and passionate about infrastructure, and particularly the electric grid. So how electricity moves from the place where it's produced over here to, well, the lights in this room, like where this originated. And right now, like this light is 23% nuclear energy from Seabrook. Or anyway, not to nerd out on you, but this is having access to these tools means if you are passionate about something. So I also have a personal OpenClaw, Marcus, from New Jersey, and I asked to build this tool mostly as a passion project. I wanted to visualize the power grid, and there are tools out there that do it, but what's cool about this is I haven't looked at a single line of code here, and that's because the stakes are pretty low. I'm not selling this to anybody. It does paper trade natural gas futures, but just for fun. And you can customize it endlessly. So I basically had the whole power grid laid out, and I could select different power plants. And I had Marcus email some of the big ISOs across the United States and ask them for access to their APIs. So he has his own Google Workspace account. He emails their support team. He gets API keys. He handles everything end to end. Everything I do is from my phone. So again, if I'm at the gym or I'm making dinner or something, I can just be on my phone texting Marcus and saying, hey, can you do all this stuff? I had to put live Amtrak trains in because I like trains too. So let's put the trains in there. So again, it's a passion project, but there's actually a book, well, anyway. I'm waiting for Mark to tell me to get away. All right, again, I can talk about that after. So.
Ask Marcus to make some trades.
Yeah, I can. I'm currently raising capital, so if anybody wants Marcus to trade their pension funds or anything. So, the things I'm thinking about, this is the last slide, I promise. The things I'm thinking about. So I have a lot of non-engineer, non-coder, non-technical friends who run businesses. And so as in a specific example, I have a friend who runs a marketing agency, and he was paying $600 a month for a SaaS tool that did 90% of what he wanted. I helped him set up an OpenClaw and on my server, which then like a few weeks later, he told me, oh, it's not on your server anymore. I said, well, how? He's like, I had it move itself on the AWS. And I said, all right, well, all bets are out at this point. But he built a new piece of software that runs his agency, canceled the SaaS subscription. This was 2 months ago. And now it does 100% of the things he wanted to do. So he's saving the $600 a month, and he's getting it to do exactly what he wanted to do. Because if he wants a new button there, or he wants an onboarding form for his clients that looks a specific way. This week it was because he wanted to put confetti at the end of the onboarding flow. If you wanted to put a support ticket into your project management tool and ask them to do that, maybe you'll eventually get there. But for him it was a Telegram message, an instant message to his AI, and it added that feature to his app. Now, the reason I put this up here is because I asked him if I could take a look at it, and he sent me a link to it. And I opened it on my computer, and I saw all his clients' confidential information. And it took me a second. I realized I never logged in. And I said, there's no username or password. He's like, no, it's just a link. I just sent the link to my employees. And I said, yeah, but app.yourcompany.com is something that people can find or can be scraped. You need to put authentication in. So he said, well, how do I do that? So I think there's going to be a lot of apps that get put out there into the world that people don't necessarily think about the implications of. So that's something I think about. I have multiple friends doing this now. It's also a potential business opportunity if anybody on either side. And then the last thing I'll say is that the models have gotten really, really good. But they still have a long way to go. And this is a quote from Codex 5.4 about 5 days ago, where it did something that I think the quote explains the essence of it. But ultimately, we still need to be there. We still need to be hands-on. We still need to be reviewing. And that's it. Thank you.